friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to make some cinnamon rolls. I talked about in my previous video that we would make these together, so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm actually going to make a double batch because these are for my daughter's youth that she's a leader at. And I don't know if you guys have ever made them. I know there's a lot of avid cooks out there that probably can just throw these things together like it's nothing, but for me, I've always been intimidated by making yeast doughs, yeast breads, and definitely cinnamon rolls has not really ever been one that I've ever attempted because it just looked kind of intimidating, you know? It was just easier to go to the store and buy a can, pop it open, put it in the oven. But I made them and they were phenomenal. I thought, my goodness, why didn't I ever try this before? So if you're out there and you've cooked for a long time, but you've just never done anything like that, let me challenge you to try making some homemade cinnamon rolls, breads, whatever. What's the worst you can do is have to try it again, but you'll learn that you can do more than what you think. So here we go. I've got my ingredients already measured out just to make it easier. What I'm going to do first is I've got 2 cups of milk here, heated to about 110 degrees. Which is optimal to dissolve your yeast, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar to give the yeast something to feed off of to grow. And like I said, this is a double batch, so you would only for a single batch use 1 cup, obviously half of everything that I'm doing. So I have 2 cups of warmed up milk here, and this is whole milk. And to that I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of active instant yeast. I'm just going to pour that in there. And then here is my 2 teaspoons of sugar. And let me find me a little whisk here to kind of mix that up well. And then I'm just going to let that sit there a minute until it bubbles on top. That lets me know that that yeast is good and active. So we're just gonna let that sit there for about 5 or so minutes. Sometimes it doesn't take that long, but I have found with the milk-based yeast doughs or breads, it seems like the milk-based takes a little bit longer to activate the yeast and for it to rise. I'm sure there's something scientific behind that. Like I said, I'm kind of a novice to this. This is new for me. But I do find that it takes a little bit longer with like the milk, but like versus water, it tends to activate pretty quickly and starts bubbling. So, and then same with rising. I've noticed with bread, with milk, it tends to rise a little bit slower, but it does rise. And then once you bake it, it does really well. And then with the water, it tends to rise a lot faster. But if any of you guys have had obviously more experience and know the reason behind that, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments section. I'm open to learning something new every day. So there's our yeast. It's going to sit there and activate. And I have 2 eggs. And it's better when you're baking or cooking that you let them come up to room temperature for the recipe. And I have on here, let's see, 6 tablespoons of melted real butter, salted, and I have 2 teaspoons of salt, and I use Redmond's real salt. It's just very good for you. And I also have 6 tablespoons of sugar. And my flour, I have 6 cups, and like I said, it's a double batch, so I doubled that because a regular batch is only 3 cups, so I have 6 cups of flour here ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the stand mixer my eggs and my sugar and my salt. And I'm going to go ahead and mix those up so that hopefully the eggs, I just took them out just a little bit ago, so they're not quite to room temperature the way I want them. And I got my butter here and I just melted it. But I want to give a chance for the butter to cool a little bit more before I add it to my eggs because I don't want to cook my eggs. So let me turn that on. And I'm just gonna let that sit there and mix. Well, actually, my little bread hook is not reaching to the bottom of my stand mixer bowl, so I'm going to clean off my whisk and whisk it together. Alrighty. Yeah, it's not reaching it, so let's turn that off. Get all that dry. I'm just going to whisk that together by hand, which I was going to actually use my whisk attachment to this, but I thought, nah, I'll just use the bread hook, so I'm not dirtying a million pieces of dishes, so. Even though you can already see I already have quite a few. And I'm gonna go ahead and add my butter because it's pretty cool. And my yeast looks like it's doing great. It's starting to bubble. Make that nice and creamy in there. I really want all that butter out. Let me get a whisk. All right, there we go. All right. Now I've got our eggs and sugar and butter all mixed together. And I'm going to go ahead and put in, well, you know what? Let's do the yeast mixture first. And we know it's good because it's bubbling, so we know that that yeast is good. And then I'll start adding my flour to that. Mix that up a little bit. We just got home from church, so we're working on lunch, and my daughter's making our home version of arroz con pollo, and I'll have to make that for you sometime in another video, or she can help me make it and show you. It's so good and so simple, and obviously cheaper than going to a restaurant and sitting down and getting it. But that's, you know, the beauty of homemade. You can make just about anything that you go out and buy for half the price. So, okay, so I've got that mixed up, and I'm going to add my flour. And I'm just going to dump all my flour in there because I know I need all of it. Let me turn this around here so you can see. All right, now I'm gonna turn that on low so it doesn't go flying out everywhere. And the ideal with this is to get it to where all the ingredients are well mixed with the flour and it starts to come to a ball, and then you're good. It's all mixed. I've got my oil out there because you're supposed to oil it a little bit to where it's easier to handle. And dry this off. And then once that's done, I'm just gonna oil it all the way around and cover it and let it set and rise for about an hour, hour and a half, till it doubles in size, and then it's ready to turn out and roll out into our cinnamon rolls. And that looks really good. I'm gonna turn that off a minute, and I'm gonna get my spatula and make sure that everything's up from the bottom, which I'm pretty sure it is, because once it starts to get pretty sticky, it pulls everything up pretty well anyways. Yeah, we're good. And I'm gonna give it another. And the bread hook obviously kneads the dough for you a little bit. Okay, and there is our dough. Go ahead and get my mix. I just had these stacked up so it hadn't been in any water, so I can go ahead and scrape this off. No sense in getting out another spatula and dirtying it if you don't got to. And I'm gonna just scrape my bread hook off. Alrighty, there is our cinnamon roll dough. Let me take this off and then I'll show you. There we go. It's a nice looking dough. And I'm just gonna pour a little bit of oil on it, so I can handle that, so it don't go sticking to the inside of my bowl. And what I'm doing, I'm just scraping the sides of the bowl to get that dough away from it, and where the coated side of the oil on the dough is touching it so it doesn't stick. Alrighty. And there's our dough ball right there. And I'm gonna cover that with plastic and a towel and just let that set and rise for about an hour and a half. And when it's done, I'll show you what to do next. My dough has doubled in size, and I'm gonna show you that. Turned out great. See? But before I turn that out and roll it out to be made into rolls, I'm gonna go ahead and get my filling together for this. And what it calls for a single batch is a half a cup of butter, but I'm using, I'm doubling it, so I'm gonna use a whole cup of butter, salted, and 1 or 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. I gotta go get another bottle, just 1 minute. Well, let me find my other bottle. Alrighty, there we go. Had to get a whole new one. Alright. So, I'm going to go ahead and put 4 tablespoons of cinnamon. And that's going to be 1. Yeah, not quite 1, but that's okay. It's okay. Let's do 3 more. Maybe a little bit extra. 2, 3. And I'm not gonna fill that quite full. There you go, because I probably already had 4 in there. Okay. Now, and I'm gonna put in here a half cup of maple syrup. And then my brown sugar. Let me look at my recipe over here. I think it calls for a half cup also. Yep. Half a cup of brown sugar. So I'm going to double that, and that'll be a cup. Put this on here. All right. Good enough. There's 1. And there's 2, so that's a whole cup of brown sugar. And I'm using light brown in that one. Okay. Let's see if this will blend up with that paddle without flipping out of the sides on me. Let me move this over here. I'm gonna turn this around so you can see. Okay. There we go. Hopefully it'll get down in there, okay? My butter was room temperature, which is kind of cool in here, so it's not super soft. Hopefully it'll, as it blends, it warms. Obviously it's better if you start with nice room temperature butter, or even slightly on the soft side, but mine didn't get to sit out long enough, so it's still blending. Got my oven on, preheating, and I'm gonna probably stick this in the oven while it's preheating, while I roll this out so it gets nice and soft, so it's more spreadable on my dough and it doesn't drag around on the dough. One of the drawbacks of not letting it warm completely before I put it in there, but that's okay. Okay, there's that. This would make some great ooey gooey cinnamon rolls. Try to get all that off of there, and then we'll stick this in the oven for a few minutes and show you what we do with this dough. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that on because I'm gonna mix it again when it gets slightly melted better. Alrighty, I'm gonna stick this in the oven. Let that melt down a little bit. Okay. Got quite a mess going on there, but that's what happens when you got multiple things going on. Okay, so I'm gonna take our dough, and that comes off real good because of the oil on that. And let's see. I'm gonna flour my surface a little bit. It really doesn't take much because it's already got the olive oil on there, and it just doesn't seem to quite stick as bad. Don't watch me say that and then it'll stick. That's how it goes, you know? Let's take that out. Alrighty, here we go. Add to my mound of dishes there. Okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm just gonna lightly, not really knead it, but just kind of fold it end on itself a little bit to where it's easy to handle and not so sticky that it's gonna stick to everything as I roll it out. Alright, they're good enough. Let me get a knife. I'm going to do these in two because, like I said, it's a double batch, so it'll be a little bit easier to handle. Just get right there. Okay. I'm just gonna start rolling this out until I can get as close to a long rectangle as possible. And make it, yeah. Turn it sideways so I can take it that way. Okay. Trying to get long enough that way it isn't super thick when I go to spread the filling on it and then cut it, because I don't want it to be super thick, otherwise it'll make enormous cinnamon rolls that take one, forever to rise, and two, a while to cook. Okay, there we go. Sticking a little bit. Okay. You should get about 12 cinnamon rolls out of it. Because I got this rolled out a little bit longer, I may get a little bit more. And I'm not gonna make them huge because the last batch I made, they're like that wide when I cut them, so they ended up being that big of cinnamon rolls. Which is great, but that's a lot of cinnamon roll. So, and I'd venture to say these are definitely not a low-cal item, so. Now it's definitely soft, and very soft, melted. That's okay, I can brush it on it. It's definitely very soft. I always seem to put butter in a bowl in the oven a lot of times to soften, and then you go and forget about it, and by the time you go back and get it, it's caramelized. But it's still good. Now I use a knife to cut my cinnamon rolls, which isn't the most optimal way to do your cinnamon roll cuts because, I mean, unless you get a really good, nice and sharp knife, which mine aren't bad, But I need a pastry wire that you can use to cut them with, but I don't have one. That's on my next to-do list to get one of those. But for now, we're going to just use a knife to slice them. Okay, now. What you need, sis?
None. I'm cold. I want to take a bath.
Are you going to get a pan for me and get ready to put these on there? Because once I butter them up, they're ready to roll. If you, it's behind the pantry. If you want to get one of the big cookie sheets out and put parchment on it. My handle's hot from leaving it in the oven a little bit too long. Let's get this out of the way. And I'm going to move my mixer. Oh.
The heat won't kick on.
Oh, really? I may have to open the door to the utility room. We relented and turned on the heat up here because it was just getting cold. I tried to run it off our fireplace, but ours is like little electric fireplaces. But nope, it's time to turn the heat on. Okay. And I'm just gonna paint this on because it's melted enough. Hopefully it doesn't cook my dough before it rises.
Is that thick enough?
Huh? Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be alright. It just takes me a little bit longer to paint it on. Just try and make sure it ain't steaming. When you make it, don't cook it that long, obviously, your butter. You just want it really soft, room temperature, so it's spreadable. I'm going to cheat a little because I need these to get to rising. That's not hot. It's just nice and warm. This is actually easier than when it is room temperature because you have to spread it without it pulling on your dough. So this is actually not too bad. Pretty easy. Seems like with a little more melted, I can control where it goes versus when I'm spreading it. You can, but you can't always tell how thick you have it in spots. But this way, I can tell how much I have in each spot. So I guess there is a benefit to leaving it in too long. Alrighty. There's that. Right there. And I'm just going to start rolling this long ways in on itself. It's oozing out the sides. Alrighty. Now let me get a good knife. Alright. Yeah, see, I hate when you cut it and you go side to side like that. I hate it because it kind of moves your dough around. If I had one of the little wires, it'd be so much easier. Huh?
This is a really bad cut off.
That's okay. So is this.
This better be good.
Hmm?
They won't be too small, will they?
No, they'll rise pretty good. I just hate having to cut it like this. I wish I had one of them wires, but I will get one of these days. And then I'm just going to line them up to let them rise. Oh, gooey. There's my large pan I'm putting these in. Get another pan. I think these will be very tasty, obviously. It's just they don't look as good as what I would like because the cinnamon filling is too melted. That was my own mistake. But otherwise, they'll turn out really pretty. And if you see one of my, I had a little small couple-minute video that had a picture of them, the other ones that I made, and they turned out really pretty. But these will still be tasty. They just won't be as pretty. Well, here's our cinnamon rolls. Here's the first pan, and as you can see, they are enormous. And they're not completely uniformly shaped, but that's because my knife didn't want to cut them uniform, obviously. And my frosting, I went ahead and made up. I wanted to show you guys how to do that, but I had to get done because my daughter is taking these with her to youth for the youth kids. So to my frosting, all I use is a half a cup of, or half a package of cream cheese and a stick of butter and some vanilla and 2 cups of powdered sugar. But being that I doubled this, I used 4 cups of powdered sugar, an entire block of cream cheese, and a whole stick of butter. For a half of a batch, I use a half a stick of butter, sorry. And then some vanilla. But being that I do like to experiment a lot, this time I added to my frosting a little bit of Torani hazelnut syrup to add just a little bit of a nutty flavor to it, and it's really good. So I know these are going to be a hit, and they smell phenomenal. And I hope you liked watching me make cinnamon rolls, and I will leave my recipe in the comments below. Hope you guys have a blessed evening.